So one of the more common questions that we get this time of year is, when I submit my samples for a forage analysis, what numbers do I need to select in that analysis package to get the most value out of that back to our operation or to our nutritionists? And one of the things with forage analysis that I think we often forget, and the purpose and the reason behind the reason that we do our forage analysis, is that it's ultimately about matching our forage resources to our animal requirements, as well as increasing our ability to predict animal performance. And so in terms of the numbers that are going to have the most meaning to a nutritionist back into our operation, and those numbers that we need to select in our forage analysis, I focus on just a few for producers. Those would be dry matter, moisture, crude protein, the fiber fractions, acid detergent fiber, as well as neutral detergent fiber, and then our microminerals, calcium, phosphorus, and especially sulfur, in some cases where we're going to use byproducts. If we talk a little bit about those individual analyses and what they do for us, the dry matter number is the number that's going to allow us to compare our forages and feedstuffs on an equivalent basis. That is the number that effectively allows us to compare silage to something like straw or even a grass hay that we might utilize in our program during the winter months. Crude protein, most producers are very familiar with that number in terms of animals have requirements for protein, and so that's what that number is going to give us. It's actually nitrogen is what we're measuring in that analysis. If we talk about those fiber fractions and what they specifically do for us, the neutral detergent fiber fraction essentially represents the cellulose, hemicellulose, and lignin fractions of the feedstuff. So in terms of this, we're thinking cell wall contents. What that NDF number does for us is that's the number that's going to allow us to predict the bulkiness of that forage and ultimately predict the intake of that forage, how much of that forage an animal can consume. In terms of the acid detergent fiber fraction, or the ADF number, what that number represents is the cellulose and lignin component of that particular forage. Given that lignin is almost indigestible, the ADF fraction is correlated with digestibility. And so that allows us to predict the energy estimates that most of us are familiar with. The TDN, total digestible nutrients, net energy for maintenance, as well as net energy for gain, are all calculated based on that ADF fraction number that we would see in that analysis. The other component in terms of necessary components in that forage analysis would be the calcium, phosphorus, and sulfur numbers, or any of the macro minerals that are available. Calcium, phosphorus, we often think of those in terms of those key mineral components that we balance a ration for, and the sulfur number becomes more important, especially if we're using byproducts in our program. And so those are some of the numbers that we need to focus on as we select an analytical package and submit our forages for analysis at a commercial laboratory. If we capture those numbers, that helps our nutritionists do a better job of formulating our rations and helps us in making cost-effective decisions in terms of utilizing our forage resources throughout the fall and winter months to come.